Hello and welcome to Beyond the Point podcast with me, Ali Christensen. I'm curating the content I wish I had had as a dancer and creating strong, healthy, thriving dancers for the future. Not only am I your host and ex-professional dancer, but I own Align Fitness here in Huntington Beach, California, and I'm the creator of online courses for dancers such as lower body flexibility and turnout for dancers. We're continuing our strength month here on the podcast, and today I wanted to talk about some of the differences in training when we're looking at strength aspects. So we have more of that strength and conditioning where you're using your body weight, you're using straps, you're using weights, and we're moving in more of a gym type of arena. That's probably what you would think of. The versus, or on the other side of it, another method that I train in is Gyro Tonic, and this uses a specific piece of equipment. It's very circular, and it has some visual similarities to Pilates. Pilates is also something that I have trained in as a young dancer and have some experience in. But if you have followed along, I am a trainer in Gyro Tonic and then also in these more strength and conditioning methods. So I've gotten this question in the past of why do you choose to train with weights? Why do you utilize more of that gym aspect when you have the Gyro Tonic method? And that's a great question because the Gyro Tonic method is so beautifully unique, and it came into my life at such an incredible time when I was, I was 15, I believe, or 14. And it was right as I had about a year of really bad clicking hip. It was super painful. Every time I went into Grand Plie, I would hear this huge thunk. Like, I'm not just saying like a little pop dancers. I'm talking, it was like radiating and like boom, boom, boom through the studio. And it was kind of a joke. Like, everyone would know that my hip would pop every time I did a Grand Plie to start out class. But this was the first time I had gone to an orthopedic, and they said, your hips aren't made for dance. If you keep going, you're probably going to end up with a hip replacement, so on and so forth. And my parents kind of said, like, well, this is going to be your last summer intensive. Like, it's not really worth it for you to hurt your body like this just to do dance. So I went to the Lines Ballet summer program that summer, thinking that this was my last hurrah as a dancer, at least training more intensely and specifically. And in the Lines Ballet summer program, they had access to San Francisco Gyro Tonic. And that was something that they had utilized where every level got one Gyro Tonic session a week. There was a mass group of us. It was not a private, it was in a group. And just moving through a range of motion or in a way that I had not moved before. I did those 4 sessions and I never had that popping, painful hip again in that way. I did have to work to strengthen and utilize my hip in a different way, but the pain, the way that it was so painful and had me and my parents worried, went away. So from that moment on, I was sold on the Gyro Tonic method and continued on and off for the next 3 or 4 years. There was not Gyro Tonic where I lived, so it was whenever I traveled, I would try to get a session in. And when I ended up doing Lines Ballet Ensemble in San Francisco, I was able to train weekly, daily in Gyro Tonic. So I fell in love with it. So I have a deep love and appreciation for the Gyro Tonic method. And as I've been saying in the last few weeks, if you've been listening to this strength month, when I tore the labrum in my hip and I was just pounding the pavement, trying to find the thing that would work, I was doing a lot of Gyro Tonic and it was providing relief, but it was not lasting relief. And it was when I found Dr. Gonzalez that we added in some different elements, and that was strength training. That was moving very specifically in a different way that I now know dancers don't tend to move in. So once again, what had happened is the way I had been moving, or the thing that was lacking in my movement, was what assisted me. And across the board, I think that that's a really great way to look at any body. When I have people who come in and they're either wanting a certain result, or maybe they're like, oh, this kind of bothers me, that kind of bothers me, the first thing that I do is look at what they do well and what they do poorly. And then as we talk about their life, whether they're just average human, meaning they're not trying to push their body in this crazy dance world, or they're a dancer, I start to ask questions and figure out what they do normally. What does their studio focus on a lot? What's important to their studio? What type of training are they doing? Are they a trick-oriented studio? Are they really big in hyperextension or legs? Are they very bendy in their back? Are they doing acro classes? Are they training turnout to be a little bit more forced and open? These are all the questions that we're going through and that I'm going through in my mind as I watch them move. So right away, I'm just looking for the missing link. And I'm telling you that a lot of the time the missing link is that strength and conditioning aspect in a way that applies to the studio. So it's really easy to think, oh, well, I do planks, I've done squats, and across the board, I see dancers and they come back to me and say, I have never done a squat that way. I've never thought of a plank that way. And they start to see results faster because it's not just about the movement you're doing, it's about the quality of that movement. And we know that as dancers, and you see that as parents, that your child or you're watching yourself gets better at the quality of the movement. They've been doing pliés since they were 3 years old, but the quality of the movement, the way their brain attaches to the movement and they understand what's happening is different. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at when we're talking about strength training, actually about any type of training. So the Gyro Tonic method is something that I love to utilize because it allows you to move with a little bit more freedom. It takes some of the effort off of the joints and allows you to feel more what's possible in your body without gravity pulling on you, without all these extra muscles coming on. It also assists to figure out what muscles can be moving correctly and what needs to be engaging versus may not need as much engagement. One thing that I find is missing from the Gyro Tonic method that I implement when we get out into the quote gym or when you're just doing stuff without the Gyro Tonic equipment is that closed chain aspect. So when we're moving or when we're exercising, we're either open chain or closed chain. Open chain is what you do without your foot on the ground or your hand on the ground. So Pilates is very open chain. Gyro Tonic is very open chain. So when we're getting into that standing aspect of controlling a joint with foot on ground, that's what dance is. So the way that I like to look at when I'm describing when I use what method in general, because each person is different, but if you're coming in to see me in a private, I'm going to be looking at what the general stability of your joints are. Where do you move from? What are the things that are lacking? And for a lot of dancers, we're A, hypermobile, and B, we move our joints in every direction already. So finding a little bit of control in the center or in the joint is our number one priority. Now, some of the dancers do well getting right onto the Gyro Tonic equipment, and they instantly find that centering and connection, and it's a really quick, like, oh, yep, that works for your body. And then there's this other group of dancers, especially if we're talking about younger athletes, that I see faster stability results when I get them closed chain, moving with control in a new effort level that they've never moved. So one of the big things that I work on with dancers and I work on in my strength course right away is what I kind of call the dimmer switch. So your effort level or your tension level, as I call it. So if you imagine when you walk into a room and you have a dimmer switch on the light, you can turn that switch all the way up to be bright, and you know what 100% of that light is capable of. And then most of the time you go all the way up to 100% and then you kind of bring it down and you're like, oh, I'm going to find this 50%, 20%, whatever it is. So that's what our effort level is. That's what our tension level is. That's what our movement levels are. We have 100% capability, and then you have everything down to 0%. And what I find for dancers is that we either go 100% or we go like a sloppy 10%. So there's this in between. And when you learn to dial that in, that means that you have to know what it feels like to move at 80, 90, 100% of your effort. And that would be like if you were in a plank and in 5 seconds, you could create the shake and the effort in that plank because of the way you're utilizing the floor and your body and the cues. That's moving at that high tension, as opposed to a dancer that's sitting in a plank for 3 minutes and is like, this is no problem. I mean, that's great for your strength, but as you've heard me say, and as I'm starting to hear more professionals say, which makes me so happy, a 3-minute plank doesn't mean anything, because I have yet to see somebody who holds a 3-minute plank with high tension, with great effort, correctly for 3 minutes. So when I see that, and when I start to see that more often, I will revise this. But until that point, I'm going to stick with, there's no need to do a 3-minute plank because you're doing it really poorly. So being able to tune in that tension level is, for me, I have found better, quicker results when I put them on the floor in the gym. I say gym with quotes, gym aspect of it. And then after they have found a little bit of stability, then putting them into the Gyro Tonic method, where we find a little bit more freedom. Another real issue in the dance world is what I call dancer brain. We have dancer brains. We have trained so long, and we've made grooves in our habits, in our neural pathways that tell us to move a certain way. And sometimes we need to shock ourselves out of that, and moving like a dancer, and then trying to do something like Gyro Tonic, like Pilates, where you still feel like a dancer. Sometimes it doesn't get you out of that groove pattern as quickly as possible. And when I see compensations, a big one that I see is in the back. I have now nicknamed it the dancer weak spot, but it's the spot where we take more effort into the back and the spine to lift the leg, whether that's coupe, passe, or a full extension. We're using the back more than we need to. That's a sign of many things, but one of the biggest first things I'll attack is that torso stability. So how we hold the torso where it needs to be so the hips can do their job. So when I see that, sometimes then putting a dancer into something that feels like dance, it's hard to break that pattern quickly. Sometimes not, but what I have found is kind of shocking the system. And again, this is what I did. When you shock the system into a movement that you're not used to, you find a new feeling. And then you can take that feeling and apply it into the sport or movement that we're talking about. If you had listened to let's think the first episode that I did of Strength Month, and then episode with Dr. Gonzalez, we were kind of talking about how I had been doing all these things that looked like dance. And after I had found my own movement healing for my hip and that, the pinch and the labral tear, and I started to find those movements that were not painful anymore. He called me out and said, "Why are you not training your dancers in the method, in the movements that assisted you the most?" And I said, bulky muscles, blah, 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 strength training. And he was like, "Yeah, but it worked for you and you've seen it work on other dancers." So that reality check was great. So I started adding in that strength aspect, not on equipment that let you be flowy, because that is what dancers are used to. And lo and behold, as quick as I see results doing things like Gyro Tonic, where I do see results. So this is not knocking Gyro Tonic, but I see faster results and better results that I want when I first kind of shock the system and get them to do something that doesn't feel like what they're used to. So I started implementing that across the board. And now when you come in to see me in person, at least, if you book an hour session, you're going to be doing both. If you book a half an hour session, most of the time you're going to spend most of your time doing things that you can do at home, because you can't take home your Gyro Tonic equipment. You can't take home your Pilates equipment. If we could, this might be another story, because then you could practice all the time. But what you can practice is these movements that use things like body weight, or use things that you find around the house. And that's my favorite thing. And people always ask, "Well, I don't have weights. What do? I can't practice these things." And I'm like, yes, you can. You take a reusable grocery bag, you take a backpack, and you pile it full of stuff, cans of food, books, whatever. And then you have so much control over the weight. Weights are expensive. I don't even want to buy weights, and I'm a trainer. They're expensive. We use a lot of stuff around the house to up and lower our weights. And I'm, not even thinking going up to an extreme weight, but just a small amount of weight. That's much better to go put a bag full of things than to go buy, a 5 or 10 pound weight that you're only going to use a couple times. So these have become things that you can do at home, that I can teach you how to work on these compensations that are driving your issues, that are keeping you from seeing your higher extensions, that are keeping you from hitting those perfect pirouettes because you're overusing a certain part of your body. And just that shock into it is one of the big things that I've seen. And then honestly, there's a bunch of great evidence. And again, I keep saying if you've listened, because I encourage you to go back and listen to this month's episode so far. There's just so many people who are smarter than me. There's so many studies and research and people that have applied things before I have. I'm not necessarily reinventing the wheel. I'm just using the evidence that's out there that is not being applied into the dance studio yet. One example of a client that I actually interviewed on this podcast was Gabby Lynch. If you go back, she was someone who actually, this is kind of an extreme case, but she actually fractured her back. She actually broke her back, and she had a condition or injury that allows her spine to move in two directions, which is very uncommon. And I'm not just talking about bending and moving, but this like slippage that we don't want. And it took us a while, both with her doctor and myself, to figure out that we were training in a method, we were training in Gyro Tonic, that because of her lack of stability, it just wasn't getting us where we wanted to go. Like, she felt good doing it, but it wasn't changing how she felt in the studio. It wasn't changing her pain level for long levels of time. And we just weren't seeing the results in the studio. And one day, her doctor and I decided, I said, I think that I want to take away Gyro Tonic. And I remember that the doctor, Dr. Wilson, who's also been on this podcast, was like, but why? Like, Gyro Tonic's so wonderful. I said, I know, but I just feel like she is not able to utilize this yet. It's something is missing. I should see faster results. And remember when Dr. Gonzalez was talking about that we should be seeing results quite quickly, not 100% resolution when we're talking about pain, or when we're seeing, when we're talking about something in the studio. It's not like overnight it's going to happen. It could, but that's not what I'm talking about. But it should happen in a couple of weeks. So if you don't see a reduction in what you'd like to see that reduction, or an elevation in just a little bit, and I'm not just talking about your leg, but you're like, oh, I feel more balanced, I feel more this, we're not going about it the right way. And that was a reality check for me, that I was like, okay, we're not going about it the right way. There has to be something missing. And that's when we switched to 100%. We did things that were closed chain. We added weights. We brought in Dr. Gonzalez. So we created a network of people to assist her. And it all revolved around movement she had more control over on the floor, in her home, and building up this buttress, so like this protection around her spine. And that's what we want to do with each joint. We want to build up a buttress, a support system, a protection, so that you can move freely as a dancer in Gyro Tonic, in Pilates, whatever it is. One more reason that I've chosen to dive into this strength and conditioning arena is because you the masses don't have access to the equipment that I do. You don't have access to the Gyro Tonic method. I really wish that I could give everyone access, but it takes a piece of equipment. It takes big equipment. That thing takes up a lot of room. They're expensive, I'm not going to lie. And, not everyone can afford to do a private to be able to utilize this equipment. So a few years ago, as I started thinking about putting online courses and kind of venturing more towards this direction of not utilizing the Gyro Tonic equipment and the Gyro Tonic method, it was really because I thought, how much good can I do by figuring out how to get results that I like in the Gyro Tonic method? How can I get them not doing Gyro Tonic, or not utilizing the equipment? That took some time to figure out, but as I've put things online and as I've dove into other aspects of education. What I found is I can create results for you guys that the masses can reach. And that was the goal in putting things online. How do I assist the most people with the best effects, the best information I can possibly do? And my flexibility course, if you've done any of my free things online recently, or if you've done the flexibility course itself, you will see that they're not typical stretches, I will say. They're not things that you're like, oh, yeah, I've done that. And I've thrown a couple of those in there because I wanted to give some corrections. For example, in a lunge, I see every dancer does a lunge to stretch out the front of their hip. And there's a better, more effective way to stretch and also see the result in the studio. So I wanted to make sure that I threw that in there because that's something you guys do all the time. And then I wanted there to be oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. And holy cow, my results are amazing doing this type of stretching, this type of mobility work, whatever that is. But as I knew I wanted to do a strength course, I knew that I couldn't approach it the same way as my flexibility course or my turnout course. I knew that it had to be something, or I wanted it to be something, if I was going to put it out there for you guys, that evolved you, that moved you through the steps. And we can see an instant result with flexibility, but we can't see an instant result with strength. You have to continue to work on it, and it has to be evolved for that strength to truly grow. So creating a course that was A, affordable, B, could reach you anywhere in the world, C, built strength in many different ways. D, was then applicable into the studio. One of the biggest things for me is making sure that you know how these exercises actually make you a better dancer. Because it's really common to be, when you ask like a dancer, well, what's holding you up? My core. They look around like, is that the right answer? Like, well, you just, you don't know why. You don't understand what's happening. You just have this general answer of like, I should have strong abdominals. I should have a strong six pack. But when we understand what the exercises are actually doing for us, because we feel a difference and then we learn why they work to make your standing leg better, why you saw your extension leg go up when all we did was work on your standing leg. It's like, what? We didn't talk about flexibility yet. I'm like, I know. We talked about what stability is, and that allows the joint to move freely. So having that apply into the course was so important to me, and then being able to evolve it to keep moving forward. So, as 10 years of training have come into play up till this point, I'm so grateful for every aspect that I continue to gather. And there's information all over the place in so many different ways and methods. And my goal is to collect the best of them and share them. It's really easy to get married to an idea or to a training practice or a method. And there's some great methods out there, but there's not one thing that gets everything. And I think that as I learned that back when I was injured, it really opened my eyes to it. You don't have to be the Pilates girl, the Gyro Tonic girl, the strength girl. These can be married together very well. You may not know what you're missing, and that's totally fine. But you can start questioning when you're taking classes, when you're taking free things or your paid things or your dance classes or your strengthening, whatever. If something feels easy and you've seen it before, you probably are better at it. That makes sense, right? Yeah. That makes sense. You probably are better at that thing. You've done it before. It feels easy. Now, you may not be doing it 100% correct, and that might be why it feels easy. In fact, a lot of the time, that's true. I still pay a trainer because I know that they see things that even though I know I should be doing them, I'm not doing them. Having eyes on you, having someone there to tell you what you're doing incorrectly or you could be doing better, we know is priceless because we're dancers. But I think we forget that is such a crucial point or part of being a dancer outside of the studio also. It's not just about your ballet training or your contemporary training. It's also about how you condition your body. That's a very, very important visual, having someone there to tell you. But if the things feel easy or you've seen them before, I'll use the sit-up as example. Every single person in the world knows how to do a sit-up. Could you do it a little better? Probably. Maybe a little differently? Probably. But if you've seen it, you've probably done it. So let's see if you're looking for those weaknesses. Search out things that feel challenging, that you haven't thought about before, that make you question what's going on in your body. When you find those exercises, when you find those people, those are the ones to hover around, to latch onto for a while, get all that you can from them, and then decide for yourself, does this make me feel better? Do I feel better in my body? Am I a better dancer because of this? If the answer is no, move on. I've met plenty of those people in my lifetime. I've things that think they're going to be good, and then when I actually do them, not just one time, but when I invest time with them, I'm like, well, this actually didn't make my body feel the best. They should make your body feel better. They might be challenging, they might be hard, but you should see your results if you're putting in the work. I just did a little first-time evaluation with a young dancer, and we were talking about what results to see because she had been having some hip pain, and within our session, we were able to take it down from, like she said, it was a 9, and then we got it down to a 3 or 4. And I said, great. So this worked. Your exercises that we're giving you right today worked. Now it's up to you to continue to work on them. So I will work with you. I will step with you. I will walk on this path with you, but you will only see results if you are willing to do the work. And that's the truth of it all. So whether that's in the dance studio, outside the dance studio, school, relationships, we have the tools. And when you have the tools, you have to use them. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to this month's podcast, April, this is the strength month. I recommend it. I have actually never gotten so many responses from you guys saying, I love the content. I absolutely relate to it. You're speaking my language. These are the problems I'm having. I've never in this podcast life had so many of you guys reaching out saying that you truly connected to what was being said this month, which makes me so happy and excited because that's what this free information is about. It's a way for me to assist you guys to find answers, whether that's with me or someone else. That was the point of it. So it makes me so happy that you guys are loving this month's information. So if you haven't listened, go back. There's 3 of them so far. There's one with just me, Dr. Gonzalez, and Brennan Gassamia. And we have more coming. So go back and listen to those. If you loved them, please pass them on. Oh my gosh, I'm realizing how many of you have hip and just general injuries that are saying to me, this is changing the way I'm thinking about injuries. This is changing the way I'm thinking about my body and my dancing. So if that's you, pass it on, because wouldn't you want someone to pass it on to you if you had been feeling the way you've been feeling and someone gave you this information? You would be like, thank you so much. That changed my life. You have that possibility. Just a little nugget, the right verbiage of something, or I know some of you guys have reached out to Dr. Gonzalez who was on, and it's helped. So I'm so happy to hear that. So you can pass this on. If you haven't reviewed the podcast yet, I would so appreciate that. It just assists other dancers and parents to find it. And I don't think that you guys realize how powerful a review is until you own a business. Reviews are just the most valued piece of currency, really, because you think about how much of searchability, even just finding this podcast, the more people who review it and like it, they boost it up to the front, and it goes to the front to find those podcasts. So if you are somebody who has not reviewed, or you've liked this information, where even just an episode, and you're thinking, what can I do to say thank you to Allie? All you have to do is type a few sentences, and I will be forever grateful. And if you would like to know more about any of my courses, please reach out to me on Instagram at Align Fitness by Allie, or on email, info@alignfitnessbyallie.com. If you would like to know more about my year strength program, this is something I recommend you jump on quickly. If you want to know more info, you don't know what you want to know, but you know you want to know more, this is the time. Reach out to me, either of those spots. If you reach out on Instagram, send me your email so that we can continue this conversation. And I'll set up a time to chat with you via Zoom so that I can get a feel of what your goals are and if this program actually fits into your life, being that it's a bigger program and that it's for the year. I want to make sure that this works for you, as all of my courses. So there's been a few dancers that I've told, I don't think this is the right time. I don't think you're old enough. Whatever it is. And I want to be honest with you guys in that, because if you've heard any of my story, I've in the past have spent a lot of money trying to take care of my body in a way that I wish someone had just said, I don't think this is right for you. So I will be that person for you. And I will honestly tell you if I don't think that this program will mesh with what you're working towards or whatever aspect of life you're looking at. So you are always welcome to reach out there. Thank you guys for joining me this week again on Strength Month. I'm so happy again that everyone is loving it. So I will see you back here next Wednesday on Beyond the Point.